Behalf of Shri Guru Tegh Bahadur Khalsa College, Shri Anandpur Sahib, I am delighted to welcome you all to this online National Faculty Development Program on ChatGPT 5.0 in academics, exploring latest updates, applications, and pedagogical shifts. Our college, a premier institution of higher learning, has always been committed to academic innovation, research excellence, and value added education. Guided by the vision of imparting quality education in a spiritually enriched environment, the institution continues to evolve with changing times, embracing new technologies, pedagogies that enhance teaching and learning. This program is organized by the IK cell of our college in collaboration with the Nucleus of Learning and Development. It brings together educators, scholars, and researchers from across India to explore the emerging role of AI, particularly ChatGPT 5.0, in transforming higher education. We are deeply honored to have with us Dr. Puneet Pathak, Assistant Professor, School of Liberal Arts and Human Sciences, Oro University, Surat, as our resource person. His expertise in technology driven pedagogy and academic innovation will undoubtedly enrich our understanding of how AI tools can be integrated effectively into teaching and research. I also take this opportunity to acknowledge our principal, Dr. Jasveer Singh Ji, for his constant encouragement and visionary leadership, and to appreciate the efforts of our coordinator, Dr. Gurpreet Kaur, in charge IKSL and head PG Department of English, along with the coordinator, Professor Sharandeep Kaur, for organizing this insightful FDP. This faculty development program aims to empower educators with the knowledge and confidence to harness the potential of AI responsibility and creativity, bridging the gap between traditional teaching practices and emerging digital frontiers. Once again, I extended a heartfelt welcome to all participants, resource persons, and dignitaries. May this session spark meaningful discussions, innovative ideas, and collaborative learning experiences. Thank you and welcome once again to this enriching academic journey. Now
All
I
right.
hand
Yes, ma'am.
over, now I hand over this platform to our resource person, Dr. Puneet Pathak ji.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank
So,
you, sir.
good evening, everyone, once again from my end as well. And I also welcome you to this 1 week long online FTP on ChatGPT 5.0, particularly from the first point of view and perspective of academics. So, it has been a very interesting topic and journey so far. Before I go ahead with the discussion for today, so I remember very distinctively the first time that this session was planned, and the whole journey actually begins, as we all know very well, in 2022, when the idea of generative AI through ChatGPT as the first platform sort of became, if not mainstream, but came to the forefront of the discussion on its impact as to what it can have, what it is having currently, and what it can have in the future as far as academics, teaching, learning, and pedagogy is concerned. So it has been a very long, but at the same time, very quick journey. It has been a very rapid journey in terms of its development, as we know. By the time ChatGPT was well known in the entire user base that it has today, it was in its third iteration. And now we are in the fifth iteration of the same, hence ChatGPT 5.0. I'm sure my screen will be coming up, and you'll be able to see the presentation. Just give me 1 second, please. So I hope everybody can see my screen as well. And we are going to start with the discussion in just a minute. So, as I was saying, over the last 2 to 3 years, this platform has seen a lot of advancement and a lot of rapid development. So much so that now it is capable of doing a lot of variety of tasks, automate queries, responses, etc. And we are going to be talking about all of that in the next few days. Now, before I begin with the presentation that I have for today, and we go ahead any forward, just a small request. The way that these sessions would be planned is that most of these sessions will be hands-on. So I'll be showing practical demos with prompts using ChatGPT. So my screen will be continuously shared apart from today, because today I have a presentation for day one. I'll come to that in a minute. So my screen will be continuously shared. I'll give my short demo or my some of my short insights or some various aspects of ChatGPT 5.0 in the first 40 to 45 minutes, and then in the last 15 minutes, we can have any round of questions, discussions, etc. that anybody has or that anybody wishes to ask or anything that you would like to discuss. You can post your questions in the chat box as and when you have them. I'll take them up one by one at the end of my discussion. Also, in the last 15 minutes, we can have a discussion. You can unmute and you can ask or discuss, and we can have a round of talk on any points that need to be discussed. One last small request before I begin, since my screen will be continuously shared, plus ChatGPT is a very heavy platform, so I will not be able to turn on my camera, otherwise it will lag both the platforms. So requesting everyone to please take a note of the same. With that, we begin with the discussion for today. I hope the presentation is visible. If anybody can let me know, that will be good.
Yes, sir. It's
Yeah.
visible.
Thank you so much, ma'am. So today's presentation will be sort of an entry point into where the platform is right now. What I've tried to do is I've tried to take up various aspects of ChatGPT, and I've tried to put them together in terms of its comparison with its previous versions. As we very well know that the current iteration of ChatGPT that we have allows us to navigate between various different language models. As we'll see that also as we go ahead, and it allows us to navigate amongst them depending on the criteria and the task or the nature of the query or the prompt or the question that we have. So we are going to be looking at these various aspects for today. And if time permits, I will try to do some demo of certain basic fundamental changes that have happened. And then we move towards the full-fledged hands-on sessions starting tomorrow. So the most fundamental or foundational aspect of any of these chatbots, including ChatGPT that we have, is its foundational architecture. And right from ChatGPT 3 or 3.5, which was its most primarily well-known used model, which sort of brought it into this whole discussion around its role in academia and research, has a lot of differentiation from its current 5.0 version in its sense of its monolithic architecture. So the earlier versions of GPTs, such as ChatGPT 3 and 3.5, were predominantly relying on what we would call as largely static transformers, or to put it more simply, they were relying on a fixed amount of data. There was a slight change in this mechanism with ChatGPT 4, which started the introduction of some sparse amounts of mixtures of various different fluid data sets of fluid information to improve its efficiency. And with GPT-5, what they've tried to do is they've tried to employ what they call as a dynamic routing architecture, a framework or a mechanism that is responsible and capable of selecting specialized reasoning pathways depending on the task. Now, one direct representation of this particular example or this particular feature is, if I very quickly just transition to ChatGPT, we can see right off the bat that it allows us to navigate between these various categories of tasks. So as it says here in my slide, where it talks about depending on the nature of the task, we have this description right here wherein it talks about the auto decision making process as to the model automatically decides which version or which iteration it has to go towards depending on the prompt that I put in inside this. Versus that, we have three more variations of the same. Instant being the normal query response system that we have, wherein I put a query, I put a prompt, and I get an immediate response. Thinking basically allows it to do thinking at a larger level. Why? We'll see that in a few minutes. And Pro, it is titled in the context of ChatGPT as a research grade intelligence, something which even I, which is the part of their most top tier premium version. And then we have these legacy models where we are able to navigate between various different versions of ChatGPT, right from point 3, that is O3, to 4, 4.5, and then the models that we see here. Currently, we can see that not all of them are here. I have deliberately disabled them. I'll show the enabling process in the next few minutes as we go ahead. So this is the first important aspect which sort of differentiates these various structures or these various versions of the chatbot from each other, and thereby making the language model far more precise, enabling it to activate its subversions or its various types depending on the nature of the query that the user has run into the platform. So, therefore, the direct result of this is that the model that we use for running a particular question, or to put it very simply, to give a prompt and to get an answer to that prompt, we sort of notice that the responses are much faster as compared to previous versions, and they seem to be more contextually intelligent also as compared to any previous iteration. Now, a direct reason of this is, as I mentioned in my previous slide, is that ChatGPT 3.5 was predominantly trained on a static data set, which had a fixed number. Although this number is not precisely mentioned, there are some estimates that have been given. And the scale of GPT-5 in terms of its model size or its training data surpasses the third version, what we used to call as ChatGPT 3 or 3.5, up to a very large extent. So GPT-3 was trained on somewhere around 175 billion parameters. This is a estimate, as I'll say it again. This is not an exact number. The fourth version was supposed to have a much more bigger size or range in terms of this number. Whereas with the fifth version, again, they've made a slightly major change to this, where what they have termed it as is called as the adaptive training across multimodal data sets, making it not just larger in number, but improving the quality also. A second important major shift which has been made and which sort of started happening centrally with GPT-5 is the incorporation of audio visuals, images, image codes, and visual data in the training phase of the model itself. Unlike 3 and 4, which was primarily in the first instance initially trained on text and limited pairs of images. I'm sure for some of us who have followed the development of these models closely, we remember the initial days in the phase or the time before ChatGPT 4 was coming out, where OpenAI, which is the developer of ChatGPT, was launching small snippets of or pieces of small short videos which they had made, which showed the training process of these models. And we can see a drastic change in terms of the way GPT-5 responds to two or three very important aspects of input processing. So if I can just go back to the platform itself in just a second, we see first right away here, right off the bat, that very up to some time ago now, they have added this feature of not only allowing the user to dictate the audio version of our prompt instead if you don't want to type it. But more than that, they've also allowed the direct result of this training on the audio part is that it has allowed the user to now have a voice activated mode, which allows the user to directly interact with the voice mode of ChatGPT. That's a direct result of this training, of the pre-training phase. And also, a second important part is that we are now able to attach files, which we also could do earlier with versions 4, I think 3.5 and 4. What has improved now is the ability of ChatGPT to recognize the elements like the text inside a image file or the document that we give, and to read them better, to understand them better, and to give us a much better response whenever we ask a question by attaching a file or an image file or any other form of document. So this is another major shift which can be noticed between the previous versions and this one. The third one, which is sort of a direct culmination of these two previous elements, is the idea of what is called as the context video expansion. Now we know that these models, particularly ChatGPT, works with what we call as tokens, the characters. ChatGPT 3 initially could handle up to approximately 8,000 tokens in one go. The number of characters that it was able to process in the input and output input output phase. With GPT-5, this number's doubled to somewhere around 16,000, and GPT-4 drastically expanded it up to 120, somewhere around 128,000 in its turbo mode. I think we all remember the time period where we could see two different models that ChatGPT-4 would allow us to switch between the normal GPT-4 and the GPT turbo mode. Which what this basically did is it allowed the output to be much larger without stopping in the process. So in the early days, whenever we used to ask any question, or to put it alternatively, whenever we would put a prompt in the search bar or in the input window of ChatGPT, with the previous versions, particularly 3.5, after reaching the token limit, it would stop generating a response. And to put it very simply, with the GPT-5, the possibility of that response to have a larger number of tokens to be processed has grown exponentially, whereby allowing us to input a larger prompt also inside the platform and get a larger output as well, which was something which was not previously attainable for all previous GPTs also. And up to a certain extent, we can upload entire documents directly by attaching them as a part of the attach file option that we've just now seen. Something which Google also achieved quite well with its platforms like Notebook LM, where we can upload up to multiple documents in one go. Another very important point of differentiation or upgradation is what is called as memory and continuity. All the previous versions of ChatGPT that we had used were what is called as stateless, which means that once a conversation that we were having with the platform, or one chat instance, as we would call it, let's say, for example, if I go back here and if I ask it a question, and if I continue this conversation, once this conversation is finished, that conversation would become a part of the static memory of the platform, and it could not be leveraged in any other manner. A major change which was introduced from ChatGPT 4 onwards, slowly and steadily, and which has now full-fledgedly developed in this particular version of ChatGPT 5, is the ability of the platform. Let me just go back to the presentation. To leverage our previous conversations, our previous chat history, as we would call it, and to derive information from it and to learn from it, more importantly. Between the time period when 4 and 5 was launched, I remember that whenever we used to demo ChatGPT as a part of any of our programs, I remember distinctly there being a lot of questions about what happens to the information that we put into the input window. And after some time, I think OpenAI also seems to have picked up on this idea, and they introduced a very important feature which was called as the memory feature. It allowed the user to have a slightly greater amount of control over what kind of information which the user was putting inside the platform could be used, up to what extent, in training its models to become more efficient and more proficient if if the feature was turned off. And now it has gone much beyond that, and it has culminated into what is called as an entire system of management of various different projects together, which can sustain itself in the phase of multiple projects, which we will be looking at in one of our sessions in the upcoming days, which is right here, which is called as projects. I'm sure some of us have tried exploring it, but we are going to look at is all its core major features and how can it be leveraged in a much better manner. So these are some of the changes in terms of its memory and continuity. And this allowed the GPT-5 model to become reactive in a sense, and more important than that, to become adaptive, which evolves itself with a user interaction. And when it is combined with what is called as its customization approach, it will come in one of my upcoming slides. It allowed the user to have a much greater amount of control in terms of trying to curtail and customize the platform to their exact requirement. And this can be done from this part right here. We'll be doing this, and we'll also be experimenting as we go ahead with what happens whenever we make any change in this part right here under the personalization tab. Currently, I have disabled this. We can see that the earlier it just used to have a memory feature, but now they have added a lot many options right here. This is the memory feature here, and we will be looking at this entire toolbar as we go ahead in greater detail. But just to showcase what exactly the slide is talking about is this particular part under the personalization tab. So another important feature which has been introduced since ChatGPT 4.0 is something I mentioned just a few seconds ago, is the introduction of what they would call as multimodal integration, which now allows, with the ChatGPT 5 being fully developed, it allows the user to jointly utilize all the three modalities of text input output, voice input output, and images simultaneously in the same chat instance. Earlier, what used to happen is that sometimes the model would switch between, or we had to switch between various different types of outputs that we wanted to generate. Now it's not the case. For example, if I upload a chart in the platform, it will interpret that chart. It will interpret any accompanying text that I give in the form of a text prompt with it. And it will also be able to interpret in the same input if I speak to the prompt while typing it at the same time, allowing the model to work all three together. And this cross-modal reasoning allows or presents to us a lot of interesting possibilities for some very important developments that can happen. We'll talk about that as we go ahead. We'll listen to first and what OpenAI has to say about all of this in terms of scientific visualization and multimedia education also. So another important update, however, as of now that we can see directly in two parts is one is the increase in the speed of chatbot. And while ChatGPT 4, when it changed from 3.5 to 4, slightly improved the quality, it often used to crash quite a bit. And there were times we remember those days there where we have heard that ChatGPT was down in one part of the world or the other due to the heavy request that it had to handle from a lot of users globally. GPT-5 tries to answer that query also by trying to distinguish between various different routing systems, and it allows the model to differentiate between simple and complex tasks by well, so as we saw with the transition between the model also, this auto part right here that we see is the backbone of this particular feature or this particular aspect. Because what this means is the model is now able to differentiate, as I was saying, between the simple and the complex tasks on its own. And it is able to assign the necessary corresponding category of the chatbot which needs to come in to respond to that query which the user has raised or asked to the platform. And thereby it it makes us feel when we use GPT-5 that it is much faster as compared to other versions previously noticed. Secondly, and more importantly, is the very, very important aspect of what we call as hallucination, something which has constantly plagued all the versions of ChatGPT, be it 3, 3.5, 4, up to a certain extent 5 also. And that is why, if it were completely accurate, this part right here, which we see constantly happening in all the versions of ChatGPT, which I don't know why it is not available here, but it should be there somewhere in the settings part, maybe in the personalization tab. Yeah. Earlier, it used to have this disclaimer right here where it would say that ChatGPT or chatbots can make mistakes, and it is up to the user to verify its user information, its credibility or its reliability in terms of the output that it is giving. Seems that they have removed that, or maybe since my screen is zoomed out, no. Earlier, it used to come on all the input output screens that we had. But the important thing to take a note of is that they've added something what is called as the fact consistency verification layer, which tries to minimize, it doesn't guarantee 100%. It tries to minimize the errors in terms of the facts and information that it gives to us, and also tries to minimize the hallucination effect, which is to give out incorrect information up to a larger extent also. We'll be trying this also, we'll test this as we go ahead, but this seems to be one of the important updates that they've tried to work on. And another important area which they have tried to work on, most importantly, is the notion of safety and ethics around the utilization of the platform. And they seems to have understood, I mean, OpenAI being the creator of the platform, they seem to have understood how filters, moderation, and permissions across various levels and layers of the model have to be designed and have to be created so as to ensure that the platform does not give out any unnecessary or unwarranted responses. Now, it does this in multiple ways. A direct example of this is that when it notices any prompt which does not meet its safety guidelines or safety check marks or safety barriers that have been put in place by OpenAI, it will stop responding, or it will say that it is unable to respond to this query. Let's say, for example, trying to ask for image or creation of an image which is bound by any intellectual property or copyright clause, or for example to get any information which is of proprietary nature, it will not reveal that, or it will not even talk about that. But a more direct example, especially of the moderation aspect, is something which I found to be very interesting in the last few days, which ChatGPT has done. Is if we go to settings right here, we would be able to see this tab right here, which they have now developed, I think, up to a larger extent, which is called as parental control. And if we come to this section right here, we see that it gives us, or it brings us to this particular part where it says that multiple users can now link their accounts, thereby creating a system of moderation by limiting or adjusting certain features and to add safeguards depending on who is the user. So if I go here, we notice that an invite can be sent just like we would send an invite for a Google Doc or for a Google Drive link, etc. And that person would receive an invite to utilize this particular chat instance or the chat environment, and we can define what the role of that person is. And if I navigate between any two of them, let's say, for example, that I say that I am the primary user and I'm sending an invite to somebody who is my parent or guardian, we automatically see what the platform is going to do. It says that your parent or guardian will be able to adjust certain features, set time limits as to what time extent can this platform be used, and add safeguards to help guide your experience. It says very clearly, however, on the other hand, that the chat history or the details of the conversations will not be shared by the person who is acting as the guardian on this account, except in certain rare safety circumstances. And if I click on learn more right here, we are brought to this tab, which I would urge you to read, whereas when you have some time on your hands, which details in much detailed manner as to what exactly are the features that can be turned on or off depending on the permissions that we give. For example, that it talks about what are the instances that can happen on memory, on model training, on voice mode, image generation, etc. And what is allowed and what is not allowed. The entire detailed list is available right here. This particular first part is from the perspective of when a guardian is inviting a child or a learner, and this is the second option right here. That first part talks about that, and the first one which we saw, which is the opposite, that part is given right here for when a user invites a parent or the guardian to the platform. So what I'm trying to say is that they are cognizant of this fact, and we can see that as the platform evolves, they are trying to sort of integrate this element of the whole notion of safety into its working environment itself. Most importantly, and this is something which I am quite excited about, is now as compared to the previous versions of ChatGPT, which were 3, 3.5, and 4, particularly 3 and 3.5, they were closed environments. Now, what I mean by closed environments is that they were not able to connect to the outside World Wide Web, or they were not able to go outside the environment in which they were working on, which is basically they were not able to go outside the chat window that we were present into. And step by step, we saw how OpenAI has tried to circumnavigate this aspect, transitioning from a standalone platform. If I go back to the platform right here, the first thing that we know they have introduced is this part right here, which allows the web search to be done within the platform itself. This was the first step in that direction. Then over a period of time, they have added other elements. We will again, as I said, this is something we're just entering into today. We're going to be looking at all of this one by one, what it does, how it can be best used, especially how it can be customized for getting specific responses. Then they slowly and gradually, from this web search and its ability to create an image, has culminated into what is now called as an agentic mode, which is basically what all the major chatbots are now working towards, be it ChatGPT, be it Gemini, be it Claude, whichever one that we are using, be it Perplexity. I think Gemini and ChatGPT and Claude are doing it quite well as we speak. Others are trying to sort of work in that direction, but we can see it working up to a larger extent in even Microsoft is also trying to do that with its Copilot chatbot also. And what this mode does is that it tries to work towards what is called as the agentic integration within its platform. Up until now, any major query that we have run in the platform was primarily working on the traditional input-output approach. What this meant was that the user would input a prompt or would input a series of prompts depending on the task that the user wants the platform to do, would attach files, would provide context, would enable other sort of functionalities like the memory feature, etc., and would get an output. With the transition slowly shifting towards agentic integration, the user's role as far as continual input is concerned is trying to be minimized as the platform develops further. And what they've tried to do, the way they've tried to do is they've tried to do it in two ways. One is the integration with additional plugins outside of ChatGPT. So now ChatGPT is able to access, let me just go back to the platform itself. I think it's better if I show this. Again, this is something we're going to be looking at is if you go to apps and connectors, all the major applications that we know of, the ChatGPT is now able to connect to it, like from Canva, Coursera, Figma, to Expedia for ticket booking, Spotify for music, to when it comes to the, for example, just to put it into perspective, on day 3, we are going to be talking about how we can utilize ChatGPT for administrative tasks, right? So it can integrate directly with our Google Calendar, our Notion pages, etc. And it is able to get information, or it's able to connect to the information that's available from there and automate tasks for us. So like from something as simple as replying to an email for me, automating that reply and scheduling that, to something as complex as looking at the entire calendar and giving me insights on the basis of that as well. So gradually and slowly, as the agentic mode develops further, we're going to be seeing more and more automation in this direction also. And I'll just show agent mode today. At the end of today, I'll just show a short demo of what agent mode can do so that we know slightly better as to how it is working. And another very, very important update which ChatGPT 5 introduces to us is what they call as generative divergence reasoning. What used to happen with ChatGPT 3 and 3.5 is that they used to give out outputs which appear to be creative, which were creative, but we used to notice repetitive patterns in terms of the way the syntactic and the semantic structure, which is basically the way the output was structured in terms of its tone, its language, etc. With 5.0, via this generative divergence reasoning ability, they have tried to circumnavigate this area also by doing two things: by trying to enter the space of creative reasoning or creative writing with their canvas mode, something which we're going to be looking at. And in doing so, it has been able to now create much more creative outputs which can adapt to the requirements of the user. Right, let's say, for example, if the user, that is me, is trying to generate a story out of the platform, I can change the mood and the language and the tonality of the output depending on how I anticipate my readers are going to read it as, and thereby getting the output to evolve much more dynamically rather than following a singular path which appears repetitive. So it nowhere it says that it is going to be as creative as a human user, but it is trying to understand, or it's trying to learn how creativity works. And that is why it's not a, I mean, this is something that I feel that it's not something of a coincidence that they're calling this feature as canvas, because we know that canvas is something where we create and ideate new ideas, and canvas mode does exactly that, allowing the user to have a larger, again, putting the control back in the hands of the user up to a larger extent in terms of how creative the output should be for any search or any query that the user runs. And this is something which we will talk about, but for this one we are going to be going back to OpenAI's own point of view on how these platforms promise to evolve. It is not something that is happening currently, but how they are able to understand the mode in which the user is trying to approach the platform from. So I think on second last year or last year, depending on how time permits, when ChatGPT 5.0 was launched, the founder of OpenAI, Sam Altman, with a few of his teammates, they did a very, very important short discussion around what future versions of GPT-5 would look like. And this is a small snippet from that. And we're going to be looking at this as we go ahead as well. So now another very important feature which ChatGPT has tried to do, before I dive into the platform directly, there is a second part of this presentation which I'll try to cover tomorrow, because I just want to show the demo part also slightly, and then we'll look at the rest of the slides tomorrow, is that they have increased the recognition in languages also. So now GPT-5 can support native-like fluency for more than 100 languages, both in the text as well as voice mode also. It can talk and listen to and understand any language without us necessitating it to recognize that language. That is, I as a user don't have to tell to the platform that talk to me in this language. Earlier we had to do that with 4.0, I think, and there were certain browser extensions, I'm sure they're still there, which allowed us to talk to the platform, but now they have integrated that very same ability within the chatbot itself, whereby I can simply start talking to the platform. Maybe we can try that also, and it will respond to me directly in that language without any nudge or without any prompt. Sometimes it stops. I think this is something which they still have to refine a little bit, where the user, that is me, if or if any of us whoever is using that platform, has to tell to the platform in just one line to talk to me in this language, and it will automatically switch over there and will start responding from there. In fact, let's do that first, and then I'll go to my second part of the demo. So let me just stop sharing my screen for a minute, and I'll reshare it. Just give me a second. I'm sharing the tab so that the audio is audible. All right, let's go ahead. I'm talking to the platform now. I'm enabling the voice mode. So let's see if it is able to recognize my target language without me asking it to, talk to me in that particular language. आप कैसे हैं?
Hey, it's great to meet you. How's your day going? I'm really looking
आप कैसे हैं?
मैं बिल्कुल बढ़िया हूँ। आप कैसे हैं? उम्मीद है आप भी अच्छे होंगे।
How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for asking. It's kind of fun switching languages like that. If you need anything else, just let me know.
Can you tell the same to me in French?
Bien, sir. I'll say it in French. So here you go. I'm going great. Thanks for asking. It's actually really fun switching languages like that.
Respond in French for the same.
Hey, it's great to meet you. How's your day?
Of it. So in French, that would be I'm doing great. It's pretty fun to pass from one language to another. So if you have anything else, let me know.
So this is very interesting. So this is what I wanted to talk about. So at the back end, when I'm talking to the platform, and we can see that the sort of a transcription is being generated for that entire conversation in the form of a chat. And when I was talking to it directly in a language, it was able to recognize that. But the moment when I'm asking it to switch a language in the form of an instruction, sometimes it is getting confused on that. So as I said, it's still, not fully completely developed, but up to a larger extent, it is able to respond in any language that I wanted to talk to. The moment when I speak my first sentence in a language, if that language is available in its library or in its list of known languages, it will start responding in that language also. And this part right here allows us to switch between
Hey, it's
various
great to meet
different
you.
voices.
How's your
Hey, what's up?
as
Hi
we know.
there. Hi.
Hey there.
Hey,
Right.
I'm ready
So
to
we
hit the
can we'll
ground
look
running.
at this
So if
also
there's
as we
anything
go
you'd
ahead.
like me to focus on first, just
Right. So this is the first one, and the second one, before I sort of open up for some questions, is this part right here, which I want to show right away so that we can, I'll talk about that as we come to it. This part is available under settings tab, or we can directly access it from personalization also. And the moment when we come here, we can enable this option, and we can see that there are quite a few features which ChatGPT has now added here. In 3 and 3.5, this aspect was not there largely. With 4, they added 4 and 4.0, they added this tab, which was called custom instructions, where they had two set of questions about how we would like ChatGPT to respond to our query and what we would like ChatGPT to know about us. Now, in this particular version, they have increased the iteration to a much larger set of options. For example, in this first part, we can change the way and the style and the tone in which ChatGPT responds to us. And the moment when we change any of these, we will notice that the choice of words that the model uses, along with the tone or the pattern of sentences that it forms, will change according to these personality types that are given here. Right from cynic to robot, all the characteristics are there on the screen. And as we go ahead, sort of when we come to the demo part tomorrow, maybe some of us can try it out and share their experiences as to how what were the differences? We are going to do that anyways tomorrow, but what were the differences that you noticed when you changed the personality type from 1 to 2? The custom instructions tab exists right here, but now what they have done is they have given us these set of pre-created versions of instruction types or behaviors types or style types. For example, when I select empathetic here, it automatically adds this custom instructions to the platform, saying it that be empathetic and understanding in your response. In a similar manner, when I select or deselect each one of them, it will add a part to its custom instructions, and we will see that that particular option starts to disappear from this pre-given list, and it is added automatically here. And if I delete this and if I refresh this page, the ones that have disappeared from here will come back. Apart from that, we can add a description according to our requirement also. We're going to be doing this, however, as we go ahead. A nickname is what we would like ChatGPT to call us. So each time we start a new chat, it will address me by whatever name or label I put here. Occupation, allowing the platform to gain more understanding about what kind of response to give and more information. So in the earlier version with the custom instructions previous version, where it had this question on what would you like ChatGPT to know more about you, they have reduced it to now saying more about you, where they have given more space on what kind of interest, values, or preferences do we want it to know whenever it responds to the queries that we have raised. The memory feature, earlier it used to be just an on and off button, whereby it would allow the model to go back to our chats and, as I said, train its model from it. But now, as we can see, they have expanded that bit also. First, if I go to manage, it can search through the memories of the chat history that we have. I have currently disabled that. I'll re-enable it now. And the moment when I turn this on, we can see that all my instances are given here, and I can search through it manually, hunt for any particular chat that I want to instead of scrolling through manually from this left panel, especially when we have a very large amount of history, chat history that we have had. And the moment when this feature is turned on, we can see that it says that it will let ChatGPT save and use memories depending on any similarities that it finds in our way in which we prompt to the platform. It also allows the platform to refer back to all our previous conversations when responding to it. And finally, this is something new that they've done, which is up until now, it always used to just go back to our chats to, customize responses for us. But now it can also access the recording transcript. So for example, this conversation that I just had with the model, if this feature is turned on, it can go back to that and refer to that also and learn from it. And any other additional notes or documents that are given to the platform, it learns from that as well. And the advanced version allows us to enable or disable whichever features we want. For example, if I disable ChatGPT voice from here, this option of talking to the platform will disappear. In the same way, I can disable the web search option if I don't want the. As this is especially useful if we are working with projects, or if we are multi-users on the same account. If I don't want it to access the web every time. So these are some of the instances. However, as I said, this is just a very general introduction to some of these changes. But as we go ahead, we'll dive deeper into all of this, what impact it has on our responses and how we can enable to use them better. So this is a short background or an entry point that we have taken into how the platform has evolved over a period of time and how it continues to develop as we speak. And the latest development as we speak in this is, just give me a minute. And this is something which has happened, I think, day before yesterday, for those of us who are following ChatGPT closely, and especially OpenAI's developments, which seem to be pretty rapid. Just a second, let me reshare my screen so that we can listen to that audio also, if I can find it. Otherwise, we'll do that tomorrow. Yeah, I think I have found it. Just give me a second. I'm resharing my tab. This particular update that has come from the developers at OpenAI is something that has been done 2 days back. So currently it is available only for Mac users. They've said that they'll enable this for Windows users in the upcoming days. It is going to be a phased launch. Phased launch means they'll launch it in phase by phase in the different parts of the world, like they did with previous features. So just give me a second. Yeah, this is it. So this, what we just now saw, was a short insight into ChatGPT's own browser that they've developed, web browser, just like Google Chrome and Microsoft Edge. It's called Atlas. They're not the first chatbot to do this. Perplexity already did that before them. They have their own browser called as Comet, which is now available for everybody to use. And Atlas will be launched in the upcoming days for everybody as time goes ahead. And it will be made available for both Windows and other modalities like mobile phones, etc. I mean, that's what the launch video said. And it will be directly powered with ChatGPT 5. So hopefully it is another step in the agentic integration that we are going to be seeing as we go ahead. If it becomes available by the time this FDP finishes, I will try to include this as a part of my demo. If it doesn't, then we'll do it in some other iteration of this same. So with that, I'll rest my discussion for today. We have just tried to get some insights into how the platform is developed, and the session is now open for some questions.